Earlier in the day, we had reports about how China is looking at online gaming as spiritual opium. Tencent is already talking about not allowing those aged below 12 years to play some of its flagship games. Can that be advantage India? We've already seen that, right? Take place, for example, with EdTech. I'm going to be discussing the online gaming space with two very special guests that I've got for you live today on the show. Rahul Tewari, the CFO at Games 24/7. We're also being joined by Vaibhav Kakkar, a lawyer and a partner at Saraf and Partners. Rahul, I'll come to you first. You're in the business of online gaming. In my introduction, I was talking about how Mukesh Ambani and Satya Nadella earlier last year spoke about online gaming becoming bigger than TV shows, movies, commerce, all put together. Today's verdict, can you tell us how important it is for a stakeholder like Games 24/7?
Certainly, I think for a billion-dollar industry that is growing at 50%, it's a shot in the arm. Clarity on regulatory issues is something which will define the path for growth for a lot of industry participants. And we think that today's judgment, although we are still waiting for the detailed order, but what we hear is very encouraging, and we think that it does provide a lot of clarity for not only the industry players, but speaking from the players, the gamers' point of view, it also is a very progressive step overall. We as company think that we would like to engage with the state governments in the pursuit of providing more progressive rules and regulations around the sector, because we think that regulating the space in a manner which is a win-win outcome for the state governments, for the industry players, and for the gamers is the way to go forward.
Okay, Vaibhav, let me come to you now. You're a lawyer who has represented in the past, in your professional life, many of these online gaming startups, right? Explain to us legally, why is this verdict important? There are various high courts which are deliberating and are yet to pronounce their verdicts when it comes to online gaming. There's, of course, a case that's also pending in the Supreme Court that's to do more with fantasy sports and real money games. Why is today important?
Hi, Nayantara. Good evening, first of all, and congratulations, Rahul, and congratulations to the entire gaming industry. Nayantara, to clarify, I am actually involved in this Madras High Court matter, and almost all the challenges that Games 24/7 and all the other gaming companies are involved. So this judgment is a huge success for me and the rest of my colleagues who sort of fought this battle. Just to first clarify, this judgment, the detailed judgment copy, as Rahul mentioned, will be out tomorrow. But it's a very historic judgment. Just to sort of lay out a bit of a legal context, essentially, in late 60s, the Supreme Court had very categorically held that rummy is a game of skill. And none of the gambling laws in the respective states will be attracted when a company is operating a platform for offering rummy. Of course, back in those days, it was all in the physical world. But that is one judgment, and then subsequently in late 90s, in the context of horse racing, that the Supreme Court had again ruled in the celebrated judgment of Lakshmanan, saying that betting on horse racing is again a game of skill, and gambling laws will not apply. The challenge, and what we've seen over the last 8 to 10 years, is that the gaming industry has really mushroomed and developed into a very robust industry. As Rahul mentioned, well in excess of more than $1 billion already in this country. And these companies were contributing significantly in terms of taxes to the government. They were also, of course, raising a lot of foreign direct investment from various private equity investors. What was happening, Nayantara, was that over the last 3 to 4 years, certain states in southern India, relying on the entry in the state list, which is betting and gambling, decided to come out with legislations, citing excuses such as social evils. There may have been one suicide incident which may have been completely unconnected or unrelated. Using certain social context, certain states in southern India, more specifically Telangana, Andhra, and in last 1 year after COVID, Kerala and Tamil Nadu banned all online, all games of skill where monies were involved. This, to our mind, was completely against the constitutional scheme, where there are celebrated judgments from the Supreme Court from late 1950s that, when you place money on a game of skill and you commit funds on a game of skill, it amounts to, fundamental business and fundamental right of doing business in profession. And it's constitutionally protected. And there can be no ban or a blanket ban on such activities. However, the states, utilizing their power under the state list, actually banned all of these games. And as I had mentioned in some of the interviews before, that, this was almost like throwing the baby out of the bathwater. And as it happens in most litigations in India, by the time the outcome is there, it could be a case of operation successful, but patient dead. So the gaming industry was heavily getting impacted by these moves in different states. Today's judgment, which the Honorable Chief sort of read out in the court, very much validates the point that the state's legislative competence on betting and gambling does not extend to games of skill. And so therefore, what this does is it also gives a huge fillip to similar litigations in other states which are ongoing, where states again are being challenged on their ability to ban such games. And I think the guidance that the Honorable Chief has given, and which of course we will read once the detailed judgment is out, is to move towards regulation. So it's a very, very welcome judgment. The first on the issue of online gaming in this country by a high court.
Right. Okay, so now you know why it is so crucial. We are, of course, awaiting the written verdict. But Rahul, if I can come to you, games of skills, while we might commonly, just think of it as with poker, there's a lot more, right? Bridge, for example, is also a game of skill. So as per Games 24/7, whatever conversations you're having with your lawyers, what all is going to be allowed?
We think, as far as the definition of games of skill is concerned, I think there are a lot of, there's very rich history of jurisprudence in the country. There are a lot of academic studies that focus on preponderance of skill as a test for categorizing a game as a game of skill or chance. As a company, and we have been in the industry for the longest, this company that is 15 years old, and we've seen, the evolution of games of skill. We think that any game that falls under the category of games of skill, as Vaibhav was also pointing out, this judgment provides a lot of clarity for those games. So I think most popular games today are Rummy and Fantasy in India, which are categorized as games of skill, and I think this judgment positively impacts those two categories in particular, and these are two categories that we are also present in. But I mean, bridge, for example, chess. I mean, there's a large body of games of skill that fall into that category. So this is a very progressive judgment, in that direction of providing legitimacy to very genuine need in the market, which we are trying to fulfill as an industry participant. I mean, we provide interactive, immersive gaming to our customers, and that I think this legal cover that is available through better clarity is important for the evolution of the industry forward.
Okay, so you can talk about poker, you can talk about bridge, you can talk about chess. All of that is going to be impacted, of course, subject to what's in the final order. But Rahul, I'm going to throw this one question at you. Today is turning out to be a big day for all of you in online gaming and even for the gamers. Suddenly, a lot of the foreign investment which would have gone to China can now come to India. I'm, of course, talking about that statement coming in today from China that is online gaming like spiritual opium. You've seen the likes of Tencent crash in trade, lose $60 billion in market capitalization, like we saw last week with EdTech, etc. Can this be a big advantage for the Indian gaming startup ecosystem?
India is the hottest gaming market in on the globe right now. It is the fastest growing gaming market. The supportive framework, which is there overall, millions of smart devices, a very young population, all that is driving the interest from the investors. And we've seen already close to about $1 billion of investment that has gone into the industry. And I think such kind of progressive judgments will only increase the appetite from global capital to pursue investment opportunities in the country. China, I mean, it's very difficult to comment what exactly is coming out of China, but it's not only in gaming, but we've recently seen some other sectors being impacted by some of the regulatory moves that the Chinese government is making. So, we need to look into the details, but yes, India is a natural beneficiary of, all the massive growth that we have seen in the country. We already about 400 million gamers in the country at this point in time. And India is the top country in terms of the number of downloads of games that we've seen last year. So definitely, we are the fastest growing and the most exciting market in the world today.
Vaibhav, let me come to you. And, 2020, obviously because of lockdown and all of that, online gaming exploded, and how? In India and overseas. India's, already, I think, one of the largest markets when it's come to online gaming, has a lot of catching up to do. But, it always amazes me that how, if there is still policy uncertainty in the new economy, it doesn't stop investments or FDI. It stops it in the old legacy companies, in the old legacy world, but not in the new world, the new internet companies and all of that. Why is that the case? Whether you're gaming, where there is so much vagueness when it comes to policy, or even when you look at cryptocurrencies.
Well, I think, Nandara, the way to look at this is, I think, one, they're advised by smart lawyers such as us. So essentially, wherever there is a gray area, I think, jokes aside, I think there is guidance being provided that eventually which way and which direction law will move. What's happened is in all the new technology and new gaming industry and new industries, the laws are actually, much behind the actual industry. So, if you look at even the gaming sector, all of these laws are all enacted 50 years back, 60 years back. They all conceive a physical medium. They're not meant for this current framework and the current business. So the laws are actually 10 steps behind the industry. What is required, therefore, is for investors, for lawyers, for CFOs such as Rahul to be able to take calculated views and be able to take positions that, do we have a right proposition here, which sort of ticks all the right boxes? And I think the key here really, of course, is that ultimately there is a sound logic on the premise of which this entire industry was structured. It was there was a legal and a constitutional protection, and that legal and constitutional protection is what has actually helped the sector sort of get this big relief today. I must also point out something to you, Nandara. It also remains to be seen whether state challenges this law or this decision of the High Court in the Supreme Court. But of course, I think to our mind, if a detailed and a reasoned judgment as this, really is out there, what this will, of course, do is get the states thinking that if this is how courts are looking at constitutional scheme where states are being told on skill-based gaming, you are not the sole decider. You can regulate it, but you can't ban it. Effectively, this will move states towards looking at proactive regulation, which will also generate good amount of revenue for the states. Because remember, right now, gaming companies are only paying GST. And that GST collection is only contributing to the center and indirectly benefiting the states. So there's something up for the states to grab. And active regulation would mean that a lot of illegal websites which are proliferating, where there are no KYC checks, no age limits, no time limits, I think all of those websites can be weeded out through active regulation. But, just to conclude the point, ask Rahul, hand on heart, if this judgment would come out 2 years earlier, he would be able to generate and demand a higher PE multiple from the investors. So these gray areas have impacted these industries, but I think investors have still taken a calculated call. And a judgment such as today will further strengthen the sentiment that this is a right industry to bet on, pun intended.
Right.
Just to add to that,
there you go, Rahul. The lawyer on the panel has posed a question to you. As his pet dog is clearly summoning Vaibhav also, maybe it's his dog's evening walking time. But tell us, what if you had the clarity a year or two ago, what would it have meant for your business? And another very pertinent point that Vaibhav raised, that you are all paying GST as well. So can you tell us a bit about how much is at stake here?
So look, some of these uncertainties that we've faced in the last couple of years, as a company and as an industry, we've always been progressive. We've always thought about self-regulating. And, this is one industry that has actively gone and, asked for us to be regulated. And, we've been doing this for some time. we take a lot of pride in the fact that we've invested significantly in technology, in our process, in our systems to enable responsible playing for our gamers. So I think what really helps if there is clarity is, the players feel that, it's a safer environment for them to play. The industry can also invest more in these technologies and in these capabilities so that, we are safeguarding the interest of the players, which is, I think, the paramount thing behind any regulation is to protect the customers. And but I think, as an industry, we have not waited for that to happen, right? We obviously would love for that to happen as soon as possible, and we would actively work with the state governments so that, we are able to come to a middle point and kind of, enable regulations that are progressive and can help the industry and the state governments. But we have our own model code of conduct. Federations such as FIFS and TORF have actively enforced some of these model code of conduct. So we are, we take a lot of pride in some of these things that we have done. But definitely it would help the investors a lot to get this clarity in black and white. So I think that all helps.
It always wins. Clarity always wins, but I think today with the Madras High Court and in a way indirectly because of what's happened in China, online gaming in India has won many, many new lives. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining us live in this edition of Startup Central. It is indeed a big day for India's online gaming space. We're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned, a lot more coming up.